My name is Marius Evang. I just finished my PhD and I'm now working for the Simla Metropolitan Center for Digital Research, which is affiliated with the Oslo Metropolitan University in Norway. Yeah, and the title of this project, the Fractured Web, Evaluating Mutual Trust and Sovereignty on the modern Internet, which is, of course, quite related to the other fellows here. So, yeah, first a little bit about the background. And of course, what is trust? That's a question which is a bit difficult to define. And we have defined trust as a measurable quantity by how, if a country decides to host their internet services in a different country, that's an implied trust relationship. And this both concerns hosting web pages and name servers, MX, and so on. And this also, of course, if you hosting a different country also involves CDN in a different country. And another focus here has been on critical functions in society, like water, electricity, police, schools, which today always depend on internet services in almost all over the world. And as both James and Jesser mentioned, countries are striving towards national self-sufficiency, and they want to keep the services in their own country to protect against resilience, but also against eavesdropping and such. And the last point is openness. When the countries and when traffic is more local, will you then get less openness, or will you still keep the same visions of openness? Yeah. So the main research topics I've been studying is national self-reliance, and also the Internet Resilience Index, and an internet trust relationship between countries. So over to the methodology. For this, we used the public available data. We used Tranco's list of the 1 million most used internet domains. And we performed for all of them internet lookups with DNS to determine the A records, MX records, and name servers. We've used MaxMind's GeoIP database, which we know it's not perfect, but it's quite good for geolocation. And then we have queried all the web servers for their HTTPS certificates and recorded the chain of trust for those certificates. And this data has been used to generate a matrix of trust between countries. And then we have, after this, used the Lorraine algorithm to identify clusters in the matrix relationships. This algorithm is usually applied to social networks. So this is sort of generating a social network of the countries on the internet. Results of this work has been mainly channeled into 3 papers. The first one here has been published already, and then we have 2 others that have not been published yet on the Internet Resilience Index and on the geopolitical global trust. So some results from the examples of results from the papers. From the first paper, we analyzed the national self-sufficiency of the Nordic countries, and these numbers, I guess, match more or less what the other fellows have seen. For the .no Norwegian domains, that's my country, roughly 40% were hosted in Norway. These are the domains on the 1 million list from Tranco. And around 16% hosted in the US, and the rest mostly hosted in Europe. Well, when we're looking at email, the MX records, we see that Microsoft and Google together have roughly half, and only around 20% of the mail servers are actually hosted, or the MX are hosted in Norway. And this data has been quite interesting, and we've shared this with the national bodies that are responsible for national security in Norway. And we also have similar data for the other Nordic countries. When we come to internet trust, these are the sort of matrices we generated. This is a matrix specifically for the Latin American countries, where you can see that the darker color represents higher levels of trust. And as expected, most of the Latin American countries have a high level of trust to each other, with one exception, that's Cuba. And this is more or less as expected when we know about the political trust in that area towards Cuba, and from Cuba to the other countries. That's as we would have expected. So this strengthens our trust in the methodology we've developed. And we have in our papers we have different examples from other regions that show what you would expect from the political landscape. Oops. And for the last paper, we looked at also at the trust clusters, and here we have long-term data both from October 2023 and from October 2024, so we can see what the difference and the development has been in the trust landscape. We see in general a reduction of trust from between 2023 to 2024, which points to that that the 2020 vision is actually working. Countries are closing a bit more and hosting more in their own countries than they did a year ago. But even more interesting is that we see the regional clustering. That let's see if that we have in 2024 the cluster of Latin America and United States. It's much more prominent, maybe the exception of Cuba. And we see a similar cluster for the southern part of Africa, where the countries have mutual trust. And we see Oceania, Australia and New Zealand and the areas around form a cluster this year. And Southeast Asia and India. And then we also see the same for the Arab Peninsula. That the geographic regions are clustering more than they did a year ago. But we also see some specific big countries that are much more self-sufficient and less trusting on other countries than they were a year ago. Examples here are Kazakhstan, Spain, Italy, Japan, and Cuba. They relied more or trusted more in other countries a year ago than they do today. So, in conclusion, we see that all countries depend on other countries, as we expect. We see that methodology shows that the internet trust, to a large extent, follows the patterns we would expect from country relationships. We see a landscape evolving towards less globalization. But since trust is reduced, what about openness? And this we are going to be working in the future to see if we can put numbers on the openness for countries and compare that to the trust. And we have also been planning to match this up to other indexes like the global trade indexes and the internet resilience indexes. So that's all from me. Now I'm ready for questions.
Jan, we can take questions. either from the chat or from the Q&A, or if anyone would want to speak as well, that's possible. But I would like to thank Jan for his work and dedication on this fellowship program. Yeah, and I think this is just scratching the surface of dependencies between countries. We have seen previous papers looking at different aspects, whether it is third-party dependencies in terms of web services, where do you see concentration of services. So I think this is a work along this way, where it will be important to see the dynamics which is happening. I have a question from Nomai. A hand from Nomai.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jan, for your presentation. It was really fascinating. I'm really looking forward to read the papers. I was wondering if the zones of trust you were designing are also related to the some markets where some cloud companies have a bigger market share. Like, are you looking also at the companies providing the services and how they divide the markets also?
We have not in particular looked at the countries, other than observing that there was actually no very large CDNs that took a very large share of this. And we were also looking for bias related to vantage points, and it was more or less the same conclusions for whether we included those or not.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Jan? I don't see any. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.